So to repeat, my name is Čičala. I'm a data analyst at Datamole, and my today's topic is deployable analytics prototypes with Marimo. I tried to make it full screen, didn't work. And my first point is the DataOps manifesto. Right, you have heard about this before from my colleague Michal. And just to repeat, it's a statement of DataOps principles signed by more than 20,000 DataOps professionals. Well, the aim is to develop and deliver data analytics that works. And you can find it on dataopsmanifesto.org. I picked up two values from the DataOps manifesto that I'm going to be talking about today. The first one is reproducibility. So make it reproducible. I will read it aloud to you. Reproducible results are required, and therefore we version everything. Data, low-level hardware and software configurations, and the code and configuration specific to each tool in the toolchain. That's what the manifesto says about reproducibility. Now, let me tell you a short story. In 2019, a group of researchers downloaded all Jupyter notebooks on GitHub. They downloaded like 1.4 million Jupyter notebooks. They ran some filters. So they filtered out duplicates, empty notebooks, invalid notebooks, non-Python notebooks, etc. And what they ended up with, they tried to run. And they found out that only 24% of the number are reproducible, meaning they can be run without any errors. That's a pretty low number. And then they looked at the outputs from the Jupyter notebooks and the outputs that they got when they ran the notebooks. And they got 4%, right? I would not call this reproducibility. And yeah, the point is that not that the notebooks themselves are bad, but there's something that makes them not very reproducible, and yeah. My second point from DataOps manifesto is to work with the customer continuously, right? So this point says that our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through the early and continuous delivery of valuable analytic insights from a couple of minutes to weeks. Right, this is actually the first point of the manifesto, the pretty important one. So let's start with a story again. Imagine that you are a data analyst and you are working on a data analytics project which is building a dashboard. The purpose of the dashboard is manufacturing of some complex devices, let's say, right? The typical phases are like this. First, there's project initiation. Then there's some discovery phase, then some building validation phase, and then some deployment and maintenance phase. Let's zoom in on the discovery phase. So it typically works like this. You have a prototyping cycle with your stakeholder. So the stakeholder says, well, I want this metric. It's complex, but please build it. Then it lands on your table. You do some data exploration and prototyping, typically using Jupyter notebooks. And then you take your code, rewrite it to some kind of dashboarding app. So for example, Streamlit. And then you validate with your stakeholder whether this is what he wants, the prototyping cycle. So we have these two cells here on the right, actually. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we managed to merge them into one? We could reach like shorter cycle time. You would not have to translate code from your data exploration part into your dashboarding part. And how do we fix this? Surprise! Yes, it's the Marimo. So Marimo is the reinvention of Python notebooks. It's a library for Python, which is open source. I advise you to try it. If you haven't, you can install it with a package manager of your choice, pip, UV, anything you like. It's been around since 2023, so it's pretty new. It has like 20,000 stars on GitHub right now and an active community. Actually, when I was preparing for this talk, I was searching about some information on GitHub, and I found out that Marimo has 7 issues closed on average per week on GitHub, like bugs, user requests, etc. While Streamlit, which is like a major dashboarding solution, has 2. So this is like more than 3 times more the velocity in this metric. Yeah, so I would say it's pretty active. And now let's talk about why you should try them. So Marimo notebooks are notebooks just like Jupyter, but with these 3 main points that I'm going to be focusing on. Reproducibility, effective version control, and easy transformation of your notebook into an app. So let's start with reproducibility. Imagine you're writing some code, and this is your first cell in your Jupyter notebook. You write some constant. This is your other cell where you do some data processing. And this is your third cell where you plot it. You create a histogram. Nothing fancy, right? But now you change something in your first cell. What is going to happen if you enter out the cell? Exactly nothing. Your plots stay the same, everything stays the same. You could even like delete the cell. You would find out sooner or later, but with a small change like this, you don't really have to find out every time. In other words, there is a hidden state that Jupyter notebooks have, and it needs manual reruns of your cells. How does Marimo solve this issue? Actually, Marimo solves this using something called reactive execution. That means that your code and the outputs of your cells, they stay in sync. So how does that work? Upon a change of a variable in your Marimo notebook, Marimo runs the dependent cells for you automatically. Under the hood, it performs like a static code analysis called AST code analysis, where AST is short for abstract syntax tree. And AST is a tree representation of source code written in a formal language, right? So on the right-hand side, you can see some code block. And below, you can see its representation as an abstract syntax tree. You can see that the nodes, like, I'm not sure if this is visible, yeah. Not visible that well as I expected. Anyway, these nodes are typically like operations. These are literals, and it describes like a analysis of your code, right? Once you have the analysis, it transforms your like a tree into a directed acyclic graph. In other words, it tells you whether you have circular definitions of variables that you need to know if you want to run your cells reactively. And if you do have some circular definitions, there's an error. So it lets you know. Now, my second point is effective version control. Let's look at this a little bit in more detail. So a Jupyter notebook under the hood is basically just a JSON file which contains a lot of metadata. And if you have two Jupyter notebooks that you use version control with, and you want to compare them, the comparison is painful because there is so much metadata that you typically change that I put like 10 lines over here, then I skipped one, and then I put the two differences that I wanted to see when I run my git diff, and then there are 134 other lines. In other words, this is a sea of noise that you don't want to see when you're doing git diffs. Or even merge conflicts. They are very painful like this. Marimo notebooks are just Python files. So it allows for good software practices in your code. It makes the following transparent, right? Git diffs. So you have a simple Python script. You immediately see when you run your git diff what has changed. Code reviews are nice. You don't have such a headache. Merge conflicts are also more transparent. And one nice thing is also that you can simply import functions from Marimo notebooks to elsewhere. Now, my third point is taking your notebook and transforming it into an app that you can deliver to your stakeholder. So Marimo notebooks have this notebook mode where basically you have cells with code, you have outputs, and it looks just like a standard Jupyter notebook. But it also features an app mode. And currently, we are about to switch from notebook mode to app mode by clicking a button in the web IDE. As you can see, what happens is that all code is gone and the app is ready for your stakeholder to be viewed and used interactively. Right. How does Marimo work as an app under the hood? Just a few words. Right, so Marimo has a backend and a front end. The backend features a reactive execution engine, which I talked about earlier. And it runs as a web app, which is served by Uvicorn, the web server. It features an app runner that you can use using the command Marimo run. Or you can run the notebook like a normal Python script that outputs some number. In front end, it is built in React and TypeScript, and it features an interactive web IDE, which I personally use. I like it. It contains some nice things. For example, interactive elements for dashboards like sliders, drop-downs. You can look at the dependency graph I talked about earlier. You can view it yourself. You can view live documentation as you code. There are AI, autocomplete, code generation features. You can manage packages from there. There are Vim key bindings for Vim lovers, etc. And now I'm going to show you an example of how to deploy this to your stakeholder. So in this example, we have 3 Marimo apps or reports that we want our stakeholder to see. We take them, we containerize them using Docker. So these are Docker containers. We connect them to data using Docker volumes. And we use Docker Compose to run them using a single command. And then your Docker containers communicate with your browser using WebSocket, and your stakeholder can view your interactive reports. All right. As everything, it has some limitations and like assumptions. And the first one is that you have Python skills. If you can code in Python, then nice. If you don't, then like low code or no code tools are better for your prototyping. So something like Power BI or Apache Superset, something like that. Complex use cases. So Marimo is very good for complex use cases because you can use Python and you have it under control. If you have a very simple use case, you can throw anything you like at it, right? So maybe vibe coding plus Streamlit, something else. For prototyping, Marimo is very good, but if you want to scale this solution to like thousands of users and run it in production, then I would recommend maybe Dash, because Dash has productionalization described in its documentation, which is quite nice. So Marimo is not good at this. So to recap, Marimo is from the category of tools that try to unite your workflow. So it's a one tool for data exploration and dashboarding in prototypes. It features reproducibility, effective version control, and simple transformation from notebook into an app. And it allows for fast data analytics prototypes with reproducibility. So it's kind of like one tool to rule them all, until someone suggests we rewrite it in Rust, like we do with everything nowadays. Then we're going to have two tools. I don't know what we're going to do then. And that's it from my side, and I'm ready for questions.